Okay, so Walker, dude, awesome to have you here, man. I want to kick this off with an interesting question. I'm fascinated to hear your answer. So, listen, if
Sure.
somebody was at a coffee shop with you, a bar, whatever it might be, and they asked you, "Hey, look, who are you, man?" What would you say the answer to that is?
It's a good one. I think primarily I'm a person who loves product and experience. I wouldn't call myself an artist, but I get joy from taking complicated things, trying to make them simple and approachable, and seeing people use them. Like that's my happy
Mm,
place is basically when I'm able to come up with a solution to something that on the surface feels very complex and make it something that's approachable and easy to use. For whatever reason, that is what it's what I love. And so I think that's close to being an artist, but I don't think I'd put myself in the artist bucket. And so therefore I'd say someone that loves product experience. And then the other thing is I enjoy business. I enjoy the strategy element of it. To me, it's almost a video game esque in the sense
ah.
of a challenge and something where I can be competitive and think and compete. And so those are the two things that I love. It's the product experience side and it's the business side.
I love the gamification view of it, dude. I look at it like that too. It's just a big game that we're playing. Otherwise, you can take it too seriously, and it's
Yeah.
not as fun, and it's probably not as effective either, which is also interesting. So, what about the classic follow up question, which is, what do you do? You say you find solutions. What do you typically find solutions in for people?
Yeah, so I'm the head of product. I'm the chief product officer, and I also run operations. So at Fourth Wall, and one of the reasons I think the space has fascinated me for so long is you're taking a relatively complex thing, which is setting up an e-commerce brand, not just the website where people purchase, but also the supply chain, manufacturing, fulfillment, customer support, sales tax. And so if you think about how many things have to go right on for one order that someone comes to a website and places. And even if you take a step back, Fourth Wall lets people design products and sell them, and we handle the production and the shipping of those orders. So everything that has to go right from the moment that someone decides to launch a shop with us, there's this enormous amount of steps to it. First, they have to come. We have to show them all the products accurately, give them information to choose a product that's right for them. They have to be able to design that product in a way that is, realistic and matches what the physical product will look like, which is difficult. And then when one of their customers actually comes and places an order, we need to instantly get that product manufactured and shipped out accurately on the space of a day or two, delivered quickly, and then make sure the whole process is transparent. So I found a niche that is quite complex for one order to go successfully, but leaves this incredible opportunity to get creative on the product side and to find solutions that haven't been thought of before. And yeah, so that's a side of it. So most of my day is spent thinking about product challenges, managing the ongoing product development at the company. That we have a great group of product leaders that make my life easy. And then on the operations side, again, we have a great operations group. So I'm more just a backstop, but thinking about how to make these digital things real when the orders come in.
I love it, man. So what about for somebody who doesn't know what the company is? Kind of give a backdrop of
Sure.
who you guys are, what you guys do, to kind of give some context based on what you just said.
Definitely, yeah, that's fair. I'll take a step back. So at the heart of it, what Fourth Wall is trying to do is be almost like a co-pilot for people launching brands online. We
Mm,
kind of a focus on physical brands, but our goal is to let someone with no experience in launching a e-commerce store or brand or any sort of online sort of paid offering and make it so easy for them that they don't have to devote a bunch of their time to becoming an expert. So we think of
mm,
Fourth Wall as the best place for people to launch a new brand if e-commerce is not their full-time profession, right? Shopify is actually it's a great platform. Like they're a competitor of ours. They're a great platform, but it's very much designed for experts, for e-commerce professionals. And so if you're someone who makes videos or podcasts, or you're an artist or a writer, you don't really have time to try to learn everything around how to source a manufacturer, how to set up customer support, how to register and set up sales tax. And so our goal is to make that easy so that launching a brand is primarily about the creativity of it,
Mm.
having something that people want, and less about your expertise or ability to spend time and money to solve these things or hire a team.
Right. I mean, yeah, in e-commerce specifically, there's a lot of people that start their e-commerce business from their job or whatever, like they use it as a kind of a stepping stone into the entrepreneurial world. And so you give them that hand-holding experience to show them kind of what to expect and how to best do it. Because there's a lot of shit you got to take into account, man. There's the target audience, the naming of the product, the design, what the product does, how you position those benefits, the pain points that you're targeting, how you communicate that. There's all kinds of stuff that you got to worry about, right? And
There
so
is,
you help people
there
kind of
is.
worry about less of that.
Exactly. Well, we try to help people solve the things that shouldn't take their time, like coming up with the right product and finding your customer if you don't already have an audience. Those are the true things that will differentiate your brand. While things like great customer support, fast shipping, registering and paying your sales tax promptly and on time, those are the basics. But if you don't have someone to solve them for you, they're going to take such a disproportionate amount of your energy. You're not going to be able to focus your
Yeah.
creativity on those things that actually matter. So we try to remove the logistics and the details so that you can focus on the bigger picture stuff.
Right. Or you do what I did, which was just say, ah, fuck it. I'm not going to worry about all that stuff. And then it comes to bite you in the ass later because you said fuck it. So you got to be careful, right? So you help folks kind of
Sure.
not worry about that. And you guys have contributed to what, like $1 billion in sales or something crazy, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. So fourth wall, not quite a billion yet, though on the way, certainly. And then my last company, so I founded a company previously in a similar space called Teespring, and that one passed $1 billion in sales. So I've been in the space quite a long time. I don't know why it fascinates me so much. I think it's the blend of business and creativity. But yeah, across the two companies, well over a billion at this point. Maybe
Fucking
one day
right,
I'll be able
man.
to update that to 2 billion.
Wow, badass, dude. How did you, like, it's not easy for somebody to start a business or be able to contribute to that many sales, right? To get the customers and then to be able to have that experience so that it's successful. Like almost two, like, come on, man. How'd you do it? Taking it back to the first company there. Well, how did you get it
Yeah.
up to that level, if you want to put it that way?
Yeah, I think that the first company I started when I was very young. So it wasn't some master plan that
Huh.
was written down and carefully followed. I think I certainly dreamed of it being big, but you know, at the core of it, we launched something. Originally, it was for college kids. That's what I knew. It was for college groups and clubs to create and sell t-shirts. And then it grew from there where bloggers and Facebook groups started to use it and advertisers started to use it. But the core of it, which I didn't even really understand at that point, I was just trying to make something that I would want to use as a college kid, right? That took care of these things that when I had sold t-shirts in college, which I did, as a side hustle to make money, that I had hated, which was the shipping, trying to find the manufacturer, having to pay up front, these pain points that I didn't enjoy. What I didn't understand was that, that was the start of this process of making a brand easier to launch. And those were just sort of the
Hmm.
first things to solve. And then with Fourth Wall, we've got a much deeper understanding where we go even further on what we help with. But really, I think it was, again, combining two things that I think I'm good at, helping with business related things, which is, we help people sell products and set up businesses and earn money, and then solving complicated product challenges, which is, taking something that, it's not an easy business to get into in the sense that, you know, 20 or 30 steps need to go perfectly right
Yeah.
for one $25 t-shirt transaction, of which, Fourth Wall makes a couple dollars, right? So it's a very nuanced business, and there's physical products. So if you fuck up, then it's a full refund, $25-$30 of pain. So you can't mess up. It
Mm.
has to be extremely accurate, but it kind of suits what, gets me fired up. And then the other combining factor is I've been blessed to have really good teams with my first company. My co-founder, Evan Stites Clayton, super smart guy, great developer, and just made that process easy. And then with the new business as well, I got two great co-founders, Will and Eli, who are phenomenal. And it just it's turned into almost like a passion project. Feels like that side hustle more
Uh,
than the grind.
That's awesome, man. If I get back to the gamification of it, it feels like a video game, you said, which is how it should feel. Oh man, it's a reflection that I keep seeing. I thought it was like I didn't know what the hell I was seeing. And then to your left behind you, it's the reflection of the window. I was like, what the fuck is that? Like a
I
little
turn
wiggly
off
thing on
my,
your,
let me see.
it's like
I
an
turn off my
interactive
camera.
painting you've got there
Oh yeah,
with the
yeah.
reflection. Oh,
Nice
dude.
day out here in San Francisco.
Oh man, it's starting to get nice up here too, man. So let's get into the e-commerce. What can we can do to create an e-commerce brand that's successful? Because you guys have
Sure.
the back data, the kind of bird's eye view of what works. So we can kind of take a step back and walk
Definitely.
us through exactly how you can start and scale a successful e-commerce brand, right? So where do we begin with the whole process?
I mean, I think it starts with any business, starts with making something that people want, right? And so at the core of it, if you're not able to identify something that people want that you can uniquely deliver,
Hmm.
you're going to have a really tough time, right? Especially, there was a period in 10 years ago where Facebook ads were cheap enough that, you could really kind of create anything, and with a good enough ad targeting and skills, you could make some money. These days, you have to find something that is authentic to you. So if you're a veteran or friends with a lot of veterans, building a veteran brand that's authentic makes a lot of sense. If you're a nurse, maybe building a nurse brand makes sense. But try to make something that you believe in, that you love, and sort of sets you up for finding a customer group. And with our audience, we primarily focus on people who already have audiences. And so that's also making something want, but in a little bit of different way. So for instance, the listeners of your podcast, you've got that group of diehard fans. When they want something, creating a physical product or something digital makes a lot of sense for you as like a monetization channel. So start of it, you want to make something people want. And then once you identify your target market and preferably what product you want to create for them, honestly, you're 90% of the battle is there. These days, between Fourth Wall and Shopify and Alibaba, and even just what you're able to find on Google, you can produce almost anything. The manufacturing supply chain has really been democratized where it's open. I wouldn't call it easy per se. You're gonna, have to sort through some noise to find what works, but I've seen people create hot sauce brands with nothing more than an idea, figuring out how to do candy brands, figuring out how to do really unique jewelry, plushies. Like there's almost nothing you can't create if you feel like you've found a market that has a need, right? And people will buy the product. And you can even do some experimentation before you go out and commit to spending a bunch of money manufacturing products, where you set up a storefront, you market as pre-order, and you put it out there and see if people want it, right? And if you get a few orders, you can always cancel and say, hey, production's going to take a little longer than expected. I'll follow up, but here's a cancellation and a refund. And then once you've sort of validated, oh, there is a market here, then you can go out and put that money down and sort of take the next step of actually producing the product, maybe registering for that sales tax, setting up figuring out how you're going to do customer support if you're not using a platform like Fourth Wall, etc. So I really do think that sometimes people overcomplicate it.
Hmm.
Even ads, for instance, ads are fuel on the fire, right? They're gasoline on top of something that people already want. They let you get in front of more people. But if you don't solve that fundamental step first of, am I actually creating something that people need? It doesn't matter how good you are at ads, or certainly it's not going to be cost effective. So I think with any business, the first most fundamental step is building something people want. Really is that simple.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love the testing aspect because a lot of people they'll spend like 10, at least $1,000, 10 grand. They'll fill their garage up with shit and they find out nobody wants it. They don't know how to sell it. And it's painful, or that's, best case scenario. Worst case is hundreds of thousands or millions. And then they find out afterwards, oh, wait a second. Happened to my dad, man. Happened to him
Yeah.
twice. He just didn't learn. I don't know. He didn't fucking, he just
I think
wanted to throw
I
away
think
money, I
that's
guess. It is what it
it's
is.
I think it's tough as an entrepreneur because you fall in love with your own idea,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like anything you love, you don't see the blemishes, right? And
Mm.
in business, that can really hurt because that can end up coming back and biting you where you haven't run it by enough people. Like whenever I started a business, or even have an idea, the first thing I do is I go out and I run it by a few friends first that I think are smart and maybe know something about the space. And then depending on their feedback, I'll expand that circle and I'll go to more people and I'll give them the idea and say, what do you think of this? And oftentimes, probably 90% of the time, friends will say, you've missed this. You've forgotten about whatever, this competitor or this law or something like that prevents the idea from working. And you can get sort of out of that cycle really quickly. But yeah, that's the way Teespring started, by the way, which was my first company also in the space. I sold t-shirts as a college student, made a bunch of money, thought, well, that was pretty easy. Got some emails from other people saying they wanted me to set them up a t-shirt selling website, and thought, hey, maybe there's a platform here. Put it into an email, sent it to 5, 6 people the next day. All the feedback came back positive, expanded it, kept getting positive feedback, and said, hey, wait a minute. I'm not seeing any problem with this. I'm not seeing a flaw. Maybe this is worth, investing time into. Now it's been like 15 years, but yeah, I think that process of ideation and testing is just so important.
Yeah, the feedback, right? You made an interesting point when you said we can't see the blemishes in something we love, and whether it be a partner, the things that we use. I mean, you got to really take yourself out of the box to see that there's a downside to it, and a lot of the times it's hard to get the upside to outweigh the downside and the perception of the marketplace. What about if you don't have a
Definitely.
list, man? Like if you just straight out of the gate, you might have a job or you might just be wanting to
Sure.
kick off your entrepreneurial journey. How do you start to test when you don't have a list?
Even if you don't have a list of, say, entrepreneurial friends, I would still run it by people that you think are smart, friends of yours that you think are sharp. Because you don't necessarily need to have some pro with a ton of experience look at, what you're building, but just getting that validation of a few people taking a look, I think is key. And if you don't have that, you can build that. You can go online and there are forums and chat
Mm.
groups and Slack communities that revolve around entrepreneurship or revolve around whatever specific space that you're looking at or interest group that you're targeting. Jump into those and pitch your idea. Reddit, right? There's going to be Reddit communities, and you're not always going to get 100% positive feedback. You're going to get, knocked down pretty hard by strangers, but it's just part of the process. And I think it's just so important if you're starting a brand or any kind of company to get more than one opinion. Don't just, you know, don't trust your gut basically on business and getting started.
Yeah, well, there's the old Walt Disney quote too, which was he would walk through 10 people, and if all 10 of them said they hated it, then he would do it. So there's also the opposite of it too. There's two ends of the spectrum. It's
That's
interesting.
definitely the counterpoint.
Yeah, fair
And
enough, right?
Steve Jobs had a famous thing where he said, people don't like, if you ask people what they wanted when
You
they
don't
were
know.
in
Yeah.
horse carriages, they'd say a faster horse. They
Yeah.
wouldn't have said an automobile. So there's a balance to this, but I just think that, validation and running your ideas past people that you think are sharp is just a really easy way to de-risk for most people.
What about the friends and family that would be like, "Well, man, of course it's good, man. Like, yeah, it's awesome. I love your idea." Like just trying to be nice and shit like that. Like, how do you get by it? What do you preface it with? Because I feel like a lot of people would be kind of hesitant to really give you the truth and actually to look at the
For
the
sure.
downsides of it for you. So, like
Yeah.
how
And
do you
this
preface it so that you get the real, like, so that they're real with you with it?
Definitely. This is something that a ton of early stage businesses run into, because what they'll do is they'll come up with an idea and they'll do a first version, and maybe they'll show a few people for free. And for those people that you show, it's just so much easier for them, even if they don't like it, to just say, "Oh
Say, oh
yeah, it's great,
yeah,
good job."
yeah, it's good, good
Yeah,
job, man. Yeah, yeah, you should do that. And then you say, do you want to buy it? And they say, yeah, no. Which
exactly,
is another
exactly.
point,
So
right? Hmm.
once you have an early version of the product, I always recommend charging for it, because I think it gets rid of the bullshit when someone's got to open their wallet.
Yeah, yeah.
Before you have a product, you have an idea. What I always do is I just say, hey, be brutally honest. Like, you're not going to offend me. Tell me what you actually think. Um, don't hold back. And that usually gets most people. They might still soften it, right? And you kind of got to see through the softening.
Mm.
But when you lead with that preface, it'll be at least a little more mild. They won't completely sugarcoat it, because they don't know if, they're going to crush your dreams and you're going to be angry if they tell you that they don't think it'll work for XYZ reason, or it wouldn't be for them.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
Right. And it's important to go to the target audience. Like, you might go to your friend for your special new tennis racket, but he doesn't play tennis. So it's like he can't give you the accurate feedback.
True.
Go online,
True.
you'll get some you'll get some genuine feedback, all right, especially behind the alias of whatever they put as their screen name. It's like, all right, you might have to put on some knee pads and a helmet for that one. They're gonna kick your ass, but you'll get some solid feedback, I think, which is an interesting way of doing that before you put money into it. And then, you
Absolutely.
kind of get some ground on it. You can say, all right, so solving this pain point, you kind of find where your target audience is online, get some feedback that way. Then what about the actual implementation of buying the product or starting to get your first batch in for e-commerce in this case?
For
How do you
sure.
really start to kick that off?
It depends on what you're making, right? So the more unique your product is, the higher the minimums will be. So if you're creating some new, electronic device, for instance, you're probably going to have to create thousands of them, maybe 10,000, depending on the size. You're going to have to develop a really deep manufacturer relationship, and your risk is going to be really high, because you're going to have to take that, huge order up front. And so that's one side of the spectrum. On the opposite end is something that is commonly produced and can be customized, like, for instance, t-shirts, embroidery, even jewelry now with 3D printing can be done. But those products actually have no risk whatsoever. And really, there's not that much of an advantage to producing in bulk anymore. So it depends on what you're creating, the answer to that question. What I would say is, again, the most important thing is having something people want, more important than making it easy and simple to manufacture. But let's go with an example for both sides. If you're creating a new unique product, an electronics device or some sort of unique shape, whatever thing that's going to require a custom setup, I would just go straight to Google, and I would go straight to Alibaba, depending on the product, and just start to search around and just start to get feelers out there with manufacturers. Again, I think people are intimidated if they don't have experience, but you can get a good sense of what is a fair price and what is normal by reaching out to 10 people. You don't, maybe you're not going to get the best price in the world or find the absolute best supplier in the world, but you're going to be able to get a really good beat on how expensive it's going to be to produce, what are the minimums required, how long is it going to take, will my design or idea work, or are there things I need to turn back? Just get on Alibaba, get on Google, start searching around for it. Contract manufacturer, electronics contract manufacturer if it's electronics, jewelry contract manufacturer if it's jewelry, co-packer if it's something in the food space, and just start to email people, and you'll be surprised at how many responses you get. The way other side of the spectrum is if you're doing something simpler, like let's say you're starting a fashion or apparel brand, then I would recommend getting rid of the whole risk profile of it and using a platform like Fourth Wall or Shopify. Plus, they've got some great apps like Printful, Printify, etc., and going that route, just because there's no value to taking the risk or producing, 1,000 upfront. So honestly, a lot of my feedback here is just get started. I think people get paralyzed in the early stages of building a company. And really, you just got to put yourself out there, email people, talk to people. You can see that's like a recurring theme for me. See what they say. Those manufacturers are going to have great feedback for you as well about why it'll work or why it won't work and what the price will be.
Yeah, and a lot of the time you can just see, like, look at it, if you got a product like a necklace or something that you want to develop your own, you could start with just drop ship and up an AliExpress, Alibaba necklace.
Exactly.
Not yours, but you're not going to put your brand on it. You just want to see if you can sell it first of all. Then once you see that you can get some traction on it, then you can start to really start to develop it. I'm a big fan of that, man. I'm a big fan of selling it, make sure it sells rather than invest in a bunch up front and then, like, all right, now we got a big issue here, which is my garage is full of shit. I don't know what to do with it. Right? It's a common
Definitely.
theme in this industry. And so, and you've seen that. What about traffic, man? I mean, you've got the high view, so you can see what people have done to get traffic successfully. You mentioned ads a
Sure.
little bit. What about somebody who's fresh in the game? They've got the product, they've done a little testing, talked to some people, and they're ready to start selling. How do they start to gain some traction on the traffic front?
Yeah. Okay. So again, I think the unfortunate answer is that these days, Facebook and Google ads are so dominant and so commonplace, and TikTok ads increasingly, but these are mature ad platforms. You're not going to get a deal anymore on ads, right? And an ads platform's goal is to increase the price of their ads to the point where the most profitable person on that keyword makes like a cent, right? Because most people, if they spend $1 on ads but make $1.10, they'll say, okay, it's not great, but I'm making 10 cents. Why would I turn it off? Who's winning in that scenario? It's Google, it's Facebook. So you can certainly get involved in the ads world, but it's tough, the pay-per-click ads world. And you're also competing against brands like the Coca-Colas of the world. They don't even care about the
Yeah.
sale today. They
Yeah.
care about that
35
person,
years later. Yeah, it's freaking ridiculous. I know.
somebody walking through a supermarket in 6 months and happens to
Yeah.
have an urge for a Coke. And so how do you
Yeah.
compete as a small guy with someone in that world? I think that the best way to build a brand today and to launch a brand is to do it around somebody with an audience. And
Love it.
so that is primarily a creator. So TikToker, podcaster, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, etc. And the reason that those folks tend to be good is because oftentimes they have a very large audience for the amount of income that they make. Like if you think about
Yeah.
somebody on Instagram, Instagram isn't paying them anything. Instagram is taking 100% of that ad check and keeping it for themselves. So that Instagrammer might have 1 million followers, but their income is not going to be somebody that has 1 million views a week from like a traditional publishing perspective. So if you have a product that's unique, that's going to appeal to them and appeal to their audience, you can try to reach out to them with a very personal custom email because they get so much spam every day and say, hey, let's partner up on this. Let's start a brand. And a great example of this is, Prime Energy Drink.
Yeah.
So Prime Energy Drink is a Gatorade competitor. And they really, if you outwardly look, you think the founders of that company are Logan Paul and KSI, two enormous YouTubers. And that's not that far from the truth. They were certainly there very early. But what happened is some smart entrepreneurs had a formula for an energy drink that they thought would be successful. And instead of trying to go out and spend an absurd amount of media dollars to educate people that this drink existed, they partnered up with these two incredibly influential YouTubers and just generally, content creators, entertainers, and they were able to springboard to millions of people right away. And it certainly cost them money, but they've built a brand that sold billions of dollars of energy drinks and is now in every shelf in America. Kids go crazy for them. And they've been able to do that without having to do a ton of traditional ad spend until, now they're huge. Now they do the Super Bowl commercials, etc. But they still feature those creators. So what I would say is try to find a partner that has an audience, but maybe doesn't have the business side solved.
Mm.
And you can bring the business side to the equation of this new brand and handle, the complexities like manufacturing, fulfillment, etc. And they can bring the audience and some expertise on, what their audience would like.
Yeah, I love it, man. Seriously. Like, you see it all the time with like Kylie Jenner with her lip gloss, for example. She doesn't manufacture it. She's partnered with the manufacturers and they hit the freaking jackpot because they hooked up one deal that then hooked up millions and millions of transactions from that single transaction that took place with them and Kylie. So it's the same thing. You see it all
Absolutely.
over the place, right? The question becomes, how
Absolutely.
do you work out a partnership deal like that, man? It's like you can find the people. Sure, you can do a social media search, Google search, whatever. Find who's got the target audience, ask who's already selling to these clients before they need my product or during or after, who's got the target audience. And then you got to go about making the relationships. So, with
Yeah,
you, for example, how have you seen, or if you were to go do this with somebody else, if you had a product that you saw that somebody else has the audience for, how would you approach them in a way that would make them
sure.
receptive of it?
Well, the good news and bad news in some ways is that every online personality, everybody with an audience, again, those YouTubers, Instagrammers, podcasters, TikTokers, etc., have their email publicly listed because that's the way that they get brand deals. So that's
Mm,
the way that they get the Coca-Cola sponsorship and make most of their income. Most of their income comes from those brand deals. So they'll have a public way to contact them listed. Now, that said, the challenge is they probably get a ton of emails every day, 90% of which are automated, semi-automated, like spam, basically, right? With low quality offers, advertise this mobile game, we'll give you 10 cents an install,
yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to stand out to that person. And usually the way you stand out is by proving you're a human and not one of these automated bots. So you
Mm,
would, mention something that they said in a recent video. Say, hey, I just watched this video and I really agree with you on this point. I've actually created a product that I think could help solve this. Would love to get your feedback and see if there's a partnership to be done here, right? And you're not going to bat 100% again because these people have so much noise. And certainly, if you jump up and try to go for the Kardashians of the world, right? They're
yeah.
they're less likely to reply. But if you go for someone that's small but has a really dedicated audience,
Mm,
oftentimes you're going to get a reply if you're genuine and you're human. And you have to swallow your pride a little bit. You're not going to get 100% yeses, but again, that feedback is valuable. You just got the ultimate expert's feedback. And if you do have something that people want and you're able to communicate that and they agree with you, then you can build a great partnership that way. So it really is as simple as you're going to get email addresses from these people. Try to stand out from the crowd by proving that you're a human and not, an AI assisted spam bot. And then go out there and make your best pitch and either learn or hopefully get a partnership from it.
What about the partnership deal that you think? Like they got the audience, no sales would be happening without them promoting this. I mean, in my mind, you want to make it as attractive and exciting for them to promote it as possible, right? How do you think you should work out the deal, like profit split
The,
wise?
it's a tough one as well because you don't really know how active they are going to be in
Right.
promoting it
Yeah.
until they do. But normally, what I would recommend is first some form of profit split. Like if someone demands a check up front, they're probably not your partner, right? They're looking for effectively an advertisement,
Yes.
and you're not in that game at the early stage of a business. You're really looking for partners that believe in your product so much that they're going to get paid based on the performance. And then what I would do is probably like, if you find your Logan Paul with Prime Drink, the perfect person to promote it, who's going to be active and be aggressive about promoting it, then I try to get them involved as a true partner. So maybe
Mm,
what I would look to do is start with a profit share agreement. I think most places, the creator, that's bringing the audience and all the sales, they'll take 60% of the profit and you keep 40% after all costs. So there's almost a split there, but they value your time for doing the fulfillment and sales, etc. Or sorry, the fulfillment and the manufacturing supply chain, and you value their time for bringing in the sales. But then if they do a great job, maybe that's a long-term partner. They're certainly going to bring a lot of authenticity to your business, help you grow it. So yeah, I would start with something that's basically performance based, so you don't get suckered into paying a fixed amount for somebody to do a half-hearted ad read, you know. And then if it works out, latch onto that person because I don't think it's easy to find a good
mm,
partner.
mm. Like with KSI and Logan Paul, it wasn't like an affiliate deal. There was a straight up partnership that took place. And you know,
100%.
I like how you went with going with the upfront splitting of the sale first before you went into the actual partnership within the company. Because you got to see, like, first of all, do they have an audience that are buyers, or I mean, are they all in no offense, but the nonprofit company or nonprofit countries, like there's a select amount of countries that are English speaking and generally have money to spend in terms of the average person that lives there, as
Sure.
opposed to others. So, just because they got a million followers doesn't mean that they got followers that got money in their pocket ready to spend on you, right? So
Definitely.
do the trial first and then see, okay, so all right, we got a partnership opportunity here. It's tricky
Yeah.
though, man. It's hard to stick out of the crowd and then not want to come off too transactional because you're trying to get them to promote to their audience that they've built up over years. So it's difficult to make that approach organic and friendly instead of, hey, promote my shit so that I can make money and then maybe you can make money too, kind of a thing. It's like, that's kind of
Totally agree.
then really that's the mindset of it at the bottom of it. So I mean, we got to kind of coerce that or kind of manipulate it in a way that's the whole mindset and frame in general. So that way you're authentically trying to make these partnerships and look for a partner that can be
Definitely.
mutually beneficial long term. What I mean,
And there,
how could you? What tips do you got for that?
I think the biggest thing is establishing your value, right? So you got to know what they are, and what they are is, it depends on who the creator is, but usually an expert about a topic, and they're really busy, and it's really hard to be a content creator. As you know, it's hyper competitive. It's just like starting any business. It's a battle, right? So you understand what they bring to the relationship, which is
Mm.
that unbelievable creativity that's allowed them to build this big passionate audience, and they're really busy, and what you bring is hopefully something that is complementary to that. So
Yeah.
that might be the business expertise or the business idea, something, or maybe you're going to put up the money for the first run, right? You're not asking them to put any money into it, so they don't have to take a risk, even though
Yeah.
they're not getting paid up front. So you kind of figure out, okay, what is my value in this relationship? You know what they do? They bring the audience. They work really hard to build this audience. And so what are you going to bring that they're going to look at and say, oh yeah, that's great. It can't just be the idea. Usually it depends on the idea, but normally it's, hey, I'm going to be this partner that is going to make this easy for you. I'm going to keep you informed. I'm going to run all the business sides of it. You're never going to have to worry about it, but you're going to have input. So if you don't like something, it's not like I'm going to force things on you. And I think that, again, just being human will really make you stand out, because most of what they get in their inbox is not human. And then again, you always have to be conscious that not everybody is looking for a partnership right now. You're not going to bat 100%. People are busy. People have other priorities. They've got other things going on, and you have to be willing to get a lot of no's before you're going to be able to get a yes. And you can learn from those no's.
Yeah, that's the point is you don't need 100%. You need one person. And so it's like you're gonna get one eventually. And you refine your approach as you go on based on the feedback you're getting too. So eventually you hook one
Sure.
up, and then maybe it's a local follow, maybe it's somebody less famous and influential, but you work out one deal and then bam, you got some traffic coming into your product and you can make a deal. What about with your partnerships? Because like, you had the successful
Yeah.
business similar to what you're up to now with Fourth Wall. I mean, how did you guys meet? Because you were that influential partner who had the experience, who had perhaps the list. I don't know what the deal was, but you had the
Definitely.
successful track record. How did you guys hook up the partnership that you've got now?
Well, I can tell you, even starting Fourth Wall after having created Teespring, and I had almost $1 billion of sales when I left Teespring, so I had a big
Yeah.
sort of, in theory, resume to offer to these creators, but it wasn't easy. I had to hit the emails, hit the phones, and
Hmm.
really battle for every single customer that Fourth Wall got. And our value proposition to these people was, hey, you should really be running some form of merch brand. Your fans want it. It makes money. If it's painless for you, it makes a lot of sense, right? If you work with these traditional agencies, one, they're not very good, and two, they're going to take a lot of your profit. Come to Fourth Wall. We're going to give you this incredible, beautiful setup. We take less of a cut because we automate a bunch of it,
Hmm.
and we'll set you up. But it wasn't, by no means was it easy. In fact, I had a call with Mr. Beast in the early days, And I told him about fourth wall, and he said, "No, I don't get it. I don't think it's a good idea." And so, I
Ouch.
had a million.
God damn. When was that, man? What year was that?
That would have been probably 2020, maybe late 2019, early. And I
Wow.
told him what we were building and what we were working on. He's like, "Nah, I don't get it." And then he asked, how many sales have you had so far?" And I told him, he's like, "I know people that do that in like a day." And we had just gotten started, right? But
Uh-huh.
again, I give that anecdote just to say it's a game of no's. Got hundreds
Yeah.
of no's. Every single customer that we got was a battle. And so the first 10 was almost as much of a battle as the next 100. And the first 100 was almost as much of a battle as the first 1,000. And so every
Hmm.
single zero you add to your customer base is going to be a battle, right? But I'll tell you what does work. Once we had a few people take a gamble on us, Phil DeFranco was one of our early customers. Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, was one of our first customers.
Wow.
When other creators see those people using your platform, or smaller people, like those are the superstars, but they're going to say, okay, these guys are for real. They're not scamming. Okay, maybe it's not guaranteed to be amazing, but there's a level of trust that's built there, and you can build on that slowly over time to build the brand. And now, Fourth Wall has close to 100,000 stores on the platform of people
Hmm.
of all different sizes. And again, it's if you looked back at that early first year, and then tried to guess how long it would take us to get 100,000 stores, you would have said you'll never get there, because it
Yeah.
wasn't easy to get customers. So it really is a grind, but every single customer you add to your platform teaches you
Hmm.
about what your customers need, adds validity and credibility that other potential customers will see to decide if you're worth working with. And it builds. It's like, pushing a boulder up a hill, and hopefully at some point you get over the top and it starts to roll on its own.
Yeah, that could be one deal, man. You never know when that deal is gonna come. A lot of people give up. That could be, there's that classic picture with the
True,
miner that's like an inch away from the diamonds and then walking away. Then there's the guy underneath of him
true.
that's like still fucking hustling, even though he's getting there, right? So there's some real validity to that, and I think that that's incredibly important. What about Marquez, man? How'd you like? That's interesting. The Mr. Beast thing sucks. I mean, it is what it is. What about the Marquez thing? I mean, these are massive, massive influential figures on YouTube. How did you work out a deal with just, I think a specific example would kind of paint the picture in terms of how it generally works.
For sure. So I can't remember who introduced us, but
Hmm.
somebody that already used the platform introduced us. And he had an existing store set up, but it wasn't his own website. It was like a third party website. I think it was a website called Cotton Bureau, who, they do pretty good work, but he was sort of interested enough to take the call. He didn't necessarily feel like he needed to make a change, but I got an introduction from another creator that was working with us,
Hmm.
and he took the call, and we told him, hey, we can get you your own website, a lot more flexibility on what you're able to sell, 100% custom branded, and make it really painless and easy for you. And that was the number one thing with him, is he doesn't want a full-time job. He doesn't want to become an e-commerce expert. He just wants it to work, but work in a way that he's proud of, right?
Hmm.
And so we talked about that, talking about what we would set up. I'm trying to remember what his custom requests are. I think his big one ask was he had this idea to do a red, gray, and black hoodie, and nobody else could do it. And his other thing that he was really looking for was the website to have like a light and a dark mode. And these two small
Hmm.
things we looked at and we said, okay, making that hoodie is going to be a little complex. It's not, because it was from scratch, sewn, they have to be sewn, but worth it for Marquez. We'll take a gamble and do that proactively for him. And then the website thing, same thing. We didn't have any light dark modes on the websites that we offered, but it was worth the investment for him. And then we set it up. And then, what I do is, he's a busy guy. He just wants it to work. He doesn't want me to bother him all the time. But once every few months, I send him an email and I say, hey, how's everything going? Any feedback for me? Any requests? Anything we can do better? And normally he writes back and says, nope, everything's fine. Every once in a while, he'll have a request. We take care of it. But basically, we just make sure that once somebody like that's in the door, you treat him like royalty. And now he's
Hmm.
on the homepage, so he helps us bring in other customers. He gives us advice and feedback. It's become like a great partnership.
Amazing, man. Seriously amazing. Wow. It's impressive for real. What about the
Thank you.
what about the referral process? Do you orchestrate these referrals at all? Because it's super powerful when you can get somebody to refer like another creator to say, "Hey, look at Marquez. This is a cool platform you might want to take a look at." Do you
Definitely.
orchestrate that or do you just count on it happening organically?
We do in a very light way. Okay, so this is another one of these things, kind of like spending ad dollars, where sometimes people think, oh, if I figure out the perfect referral program, that's going to make me a lot of money. But what's at the core of a referral program, right? Especially when someone is going to refer somebody they have a relationship with, trust, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they have to like what you're selling. So you start with, how do I create something that um, that people are going to like, and then they're just naturally going to refer on their own, and then a referral program is like gas on that fire, right? So it's not the kindling, it's not how you start a fire, it's how you get the flames higher. So we don't do a huge amount of paid referrals, because the reality is, in the content creator space, your reputation is so important. So
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't like something enough to really refer it on their own, very rarely are they going to say, oh, you're going to give me whatever X dollars. Okay, I'll do it every once in a while, but it's not the primary way that people interact. But now we've started to do things where if someone refers someone, we give them sample credit. For some of our products like memberships, we've got some relationships with agencies where if they bring a client in, we give them 1% of our take, or like of the overall take, which works
Hmm.
out to be like 20% of our take. But really, again, people make it more complicated than it is. If you make something people really love, they're going to refer it. You don't have to, you know, put in all of those extra steps.
Yeah, and you gotta be careful, man, because like when bank, for example, they're like all the time, $50 to you if you refer a friend or whatever. It's like 50 for you, 50 for them, whatever. And then as soon as I go to mention it to somebody, and this was years ago, but I remember having this feeling like what am I like trying to convince them to, it's like weird now, because like there's some incentive there and they know that, and then they find out, or at least
Exactly.
right? And there's that under vibe of like, what the hell's going on here? Something's a little off. And so having an
Totally.
incentive can also kind of ruin that relationship or ruin the opportunity for them to refer to begin with, which is an
For
interesting
sure.
dynamic there. Yeah.
And that's where the authenticity comes in, because if you actually loved that bank, then you wouldn't feel so weird about it, because you tell your friend,
Yeah.
hey, here's this bank and they're giving me $50. You sign up. They've been amazing. I would have done it anyway. Right. And then it's natural for you to refer them. And that's where it's gasoline, because maybe you just hadn't thought about telling a few of your
Right.
friends about the bank, but
Yeah.
you love them. And so now you don't mind going in and sort of going that extra mile. But that's where people go wrong. The bank will try to do a referral program without first making sure that you've fallen in love with the product. And then the other thing is, okay, if you take that example, let's stick with the bank, for instance, right? But this is for any business. Let's say that you paid somebody, you could set up a referral program where you gave somebody $50 to give you a new sign up, right? But the product wasn't very good. The reality is that that person that signs up is not going to stay. And if you're not building a customer base that stays, it's really hard to build a long-term business, right? Because you're going to have to replace those customers that are leaving with new customers every single whatever month or year or whatever it might be. The best businesses are ones where people sign up as a customer and they love it so much that they stay for a really long time. And spending too much time focusing on the gamification side of things before
Hmm.
you focus on making something just great can be a really hard trap, especially in today's day and age, because there is so much education about the art of advertising and the art of referral programs or click funnels out there, that again, sometimes you can just lose sight of the simple concept: build something great, build something that people want, and the rest will almost figure itself out. It's easy mode when you've got something that people love. It's really hard when you're trying to build a business on the back of something that, you know, the customers are not in love with.
Yeah, then it's that constant cycle of I got to get new clients because I know they're not going to stay for more than a month, and you see that sometimes. And so, yeah, I agree with you,
For
man.
sure.
Interesting. So, and this is the last question for you, and I'm curious to hear your answer. If somebody were to like, what's the best question I should be asking you, man? If I were to ask it, would be able to get a bunch of value out of you, but I'm not asking it. What's that question?
That is a tough one. Yeah, let me think. I mean, I've tried to get at it. I think what I know more, you know, I've been doing this for like 15 years, and I have seen extreme highs and I have seen extreme lows,
Mm,
right? And so if I think about, okay, what am I as an entrepreneur, you know, what do I think that I am not uniquely good at, but where could I deliver something unique to people? I think it is perhaps in understanding, you know, the perseverance that is required to build
oh
something.
yeah.
You have to be in love with what you do, or it's just not a good career for you because there are easier ways to make money. And you know, I think that the reason that I've been able to keep going through really low points. Teespring had multiple rounds of layoffs at points. There were points where I thought the business was going to go under, many for both businesses, right?
Mm,
The only thing that kept me going is that I enjoyed it. Like I said, it felt like that video game. It felt like a challenge that I wanted to do. So if you're going to get into this world of entrepreneurship or really any business, even same thing with being a content creator, right? If you don't love it and you don't want to wake up to it every day, it's going to be really tough to find success. So I think I don't know if that's unique to me, but certainly that's what I feel like I've learned through all those failures.
Hell no, it's not unique to you, man. It's like that's part of it, dude. You gotta love it. There's gonna be shit. There's gonna be lows. You can't have the highs without the lows. And you gotta go through it sometimes. And if you don't love it, then you're not gonna make it. So if you don't love it, find a way to love it. Ask yourself, if I were to love this, what would it look like? And then execute
Yes,
based on the answer to that question.
find the thing you do love, the business, or you know, for people that are listening to this podcast, they're already showing they love business, right? Because they're taking their free time and they're not listening to a comedy podcast. They're listening, learning about business, right? So they've already demonstrating that, but it's a battle, as you know, and you know that perseverance. There are very few overnight success stories in any business. It looks like an overnight success
Yeah,
story when
yeah.
you zoom out, but every business you read and it's brutal. It is brutal in those early days. So yeah, not sure that's the uplifting message that I would you were looking for, but I feel like that's like one of the biggest things I've learned about this world.
Yeah, the image that came to mind when you were saying that was the Shawshank Redemption scene where the guy's crawling through the ship pipe and he finally gets
Yeah,
out and then he's in Mexico, baby. So, you gotta crawl through some
not far from
shit
that.
sometimes to get your boat on the beach. So I think there's something to that, man. Anyways, Walker, brother, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate you for being here, brother. Is there anything else you want to add before we kick this off?
No, no, just if any entrepreneurs want to try to launch a brand and just play around with it, certainly come check out Fourth Wall, and I would love to hear your feedback. As I said, let me know what we could do better.
Right on, man. Right on. And if you want to refer, then you can refer Fourth Wall as well. And not going to
There
be
you
an
go.
overt incentive. You're not going to get $50 for referring it, but maybe that's the positive of it. And there's another there's another takeaway there too. So Walker, brother, I appreciate you, man. And we'll keep in touch. Okay.
Happy to do it. Great to chat, Kyle.
Ciao, my friend.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.